Hi, my name is Casey Kellogg, and this is a book review for the book Reason, Truth, and History by the great and late philosopher and Dr. Hilary Putnam. And this is for Ed 507, Fall 1, 2019, Eastern Washington University. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon with many of you guys when it came to starting us off with a quote. So here we go. Descartes said in 1637, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. But ultimately, what is real? How do you know that what you are seeing is the way that it actually is? How do you know that the world is the way that you experience it? Can you be so certain? Now, these ideas are out there, and trust me, it challenged my thought process too. But maybe one way of thinking this might be from the other late and great 1990s series, The Matrix. Follow me if you would.
This is the construct. It's our loading program. We can load anything from clothing to equipment, weapons, training simulations, anything we need.
Right now, we're inside a computer program?
Is it really so hard to believe? Your clothes are different, the plugs in your arms and head are gone. Your hair has changed. Your appearance now is what we call residual self-image. It is the mental projection of your digital self.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Now, I understand that we're starting to challenge some people's thought process and where I'm going. I promise you, I will bring you back and we'll actually make it applicable to your classroom. Before we do, let's give some quick, kind of background biography here of the professor or the Dr. Hilary Putnam. He received, I start at the very beginning, was born in Chicago in 1926, goes on to graduate from the University of Pennsylvania, received his PhD in 1951 from UCLA, and then goes on to teach at some of the most prestigious universities in the entire United States, minus Eastern Washington University, and those be including Northwest University, Princeton University, MIT, and then later on at Harvard. He'll join the faculty there at Harvard in 1965 and then retire in the June of the year 2000. Now, his book that I chose to review, Reason, Truth, and History, it deals with issues that we're dealing with as well in this class, such as epistemology, metaphysics, value theory, and philosophy of language. To be honest with you, the reason why I chose this book was because it was written in the year I was born. Two, as a social studies BA from Eastern Washington. The fact that the word history was in the title caught my eye. And then last but not least, the total pages for the book was under 200. So it caught my eye. Although I'll be 100% honest with you, the density of this book is beyond something that I've read in years, and is something that caused me to run around this campus of mine that I work at to ask everybody if they knew anything. Unfortunately for me, nobody knew anything. But if they were to break it down to two kind of basic ideas, his idea or concept within his book was to tear down the notion that natural sciences have had ultimately when it comes to philosophy or philosophical thought, as well as to break free fixed categories of thought as they always have been appeared to force or define the solutions to problems that we may face. Now, as we start to move forward here, we have to start here. Brain in a vat. This is the kind of the greatest concept of the book that will drive the reasons why Putnam believes what he does. To help make sense of this, here's a quick little video.
Just imagine, one night, a neuroscientist creeps into your room.
He drugs you and drags you off to his lab, where he carefully removes your brain from your skull and places it in a nutrient solution. He then links it up to a special machine. It processes your brain's nerve impulses and sends it all sorts of signals. The scientist uses electrical impulses to create any imaginable perception in your brain to place you in a world that is deceptively real. Because our conscious experience is generated by processes in the brain, we actually don't need the body. When you see a flower, your eye sends information directly to your brain, which then creates the impression of the flower. But you wouldn't need to go from the flower to the eye to the brain if you could produce an identical state in the brain artificially.
Now, go back here for a second. Never mind. We'll just go with this. Now, Putnam himself currently does not believe that our brains are in a vat, that we are in some kind of computer simulation, such as you see the Matrix. But he uses this device, this rationality, to raise concerns arising issues with that mind and world relationship. Again, what he states is modern physics has created this problem of relation of the mind to the material body. Medieval thought back in the day used to state that anything could exert influence on anything. And again, such a way of thinking, it's not surprising that the mind could influence the body. Yet it's math to blame. It's the physics to blame that, again, that has ultimately challenged that mind to material body relation. Now, if we break it down to his contributions to theory, philosophy of education, or just to human existence, Putnam ultimately believed that that most of us in our daily life do not have the time to think about these types of things. It's optional, right? Again, when it comes to philosophy of language, epistemology, and even metaphysics, these are things that are not within our daily rational point. But the question that is at the focal point of all of our lives is fact and value is a forced choice question. What is fact? What do we value? And reflection of those things is something that we all have to draw our own conclusions. So let's start here. A, what are facts? Number one, he states that, again, the only criterion for what is a fact is something that can be rationally accepted. The quite literal explanation or example that he gives is that if you could, again, be rationally to accept that whatever particular photo or picture is beautiful, then it can be fact that that picture is beautiful. Simple enough. But Putnam also agreed that, again, with subjectivist philosophers, that there is no fixed ahistorical thought which defines ultimately what is rational or what we are and what is fact. There is no acceptance across human life. What is truth? He states that a statement can be rationally accepted at a time, but not true. Just because it's rational to believe something doesn't mean that it actually is that way. And two, he talks about how ultimately this dichotomy or this separation of subjective and objectiveness have caused thinkers, philosophers, and the like, and the rest of us to categorize things into almost ideological labels. He believes that truth unites objective and subjective components. 3, when it comes to rationality, he states that one part of rationality that not all human beings, again, flourish over the idea of what is good. Truth deeply dependent on, again, what has been recently called values and where we put our values as humans. And another part of this, again, states, coming back to that, there's no historical set of moral principles that define what humans need to thrive or consist in. It's only by going to a deep level of connecting our accounts of truth and rationality themselves that we can get beyond these fact and value divisions that we have that exist. All right, let's go one step farther here. Let's make it applicable to our classrooms. The one thing that I found when trying to explain Putnam's theory to my science department and my colleagues on campus was that there is no single answer. And when I told the science teachers and the people on my department that I work with that what they are teaching, nothing is fact. I cannot say that it went over very well. Most of them push back on this philosophy, but for a majority of those within kind of the sciences that I deal with within social sciences, most of them agreed with this philosophy. So your types, natural versus social sciences, have different perspectives on this. Two, when it comes to how does his impacts impact our classroom, he emphasizes that, again, exploration, discovery have huge impacts or components because the values that we bring forth and the rationality of why we do what we do all impact truth. Last but not least, he also states how each individual is unique. Our experiences will help us draw conclusions. And what one person might state is fact, another may not. For us in Western or American society, what the Nazis did in World War II was incorrect or wrong. But that is our value, that is our perception, that is our conclusions, which can differ depending on the human. Now, I as well am a slightly progressivist. So instead of discussion questions, I apologize, I came up with discussion prompts. So here we go. Feel free to pause as you need, but prompt number 1. Explain a time when you or one of your students challenged common or majority thinking within a classroom assignment discussion, right? Please include the instructor's response to that challenging of the status quo. 2, regardless whether or not you agree with Putnam, please provide one example of how you could use his philosophy to adapt or change a classroom to reflect his progressive theory. Please include the roles of both the educator and the students within your example. As we leave, I'll leave you with this. Putnam has stated that doubt requires justification as long as belief. Justify your doubt. Through this book, I have found that I personally am developing a philosophy of education that is both rooted in conservatism as well as progressivism. I personally chose not to capitalize anything but names within this presentation as a progressive idea because of the work that my wife does for a private organization. And the private organization personally has made it a mantra to not capitalize anything so that everything is equitable. And that was one idea that I stole from them to add into this piece here too. I too have found that while I teach realist and conservative ideas when it comes to skills, I again do allow for lots of freedom of progressivism within my students, of freedom of choice of what they study to find their own conclusions. And I do not personally teach any particular specific ways or the way the world is based on their evidence, their experiences, and their understanding of the world, that we all end up sharing our ideas to collectively have a better reality of what the truth and world really is. I wish you the best. Thank you so much for your time. And for those who wish, here are my references. And again, I thank you so much for your time. Take care, scholars. Go forth.